Good morning, and good afternoon, good evening. So 9 months ago, Maha and Hila contacted me and said, "Hey, we're putting together a symposium. Do you want to present your paper?" And I said, "I have nothing to present." And then I thought that problem was gone. And then Maha came back. So then, do you want to discuss? I said, "Well, I don't have to prepare anything at the moment." So I said, "That sounds like a great idea." Now, actually, last night I was thinking, what a mistake I made. Right. And then, I think actually the challenge is these four papers show actually the progress of that we are making in this field of AI and future work, because they represent very, very high quality, detailed field work. I think that is actually encouraging. Also, that means that these papers individually actually need to be discussed in detail if we want to do justice. So what do I do, with the limited time that we have? So I thought that maybe what I should do is kind of like a step back, think about what is happening here collectively, as we're discussing about this as an academic. Most of us are not actually tool builders, but yet the AI discourse is happening at a societal level, inside and outside of the academia of management scholarship. So what can we actually do to contribute in that conversation in a meaningful way? So the future of work is already here. It's just not evenly distributed, right? So anyway, so historical context. Homo sapiens are amazing in many ways, but we are not actually the smartest. I think we're probably smartest, but we are not the strongest, the fastest, the organism on Earth, not by far the largest number of organisms, but we end up actually sort of taking over this Earth and then doing a lot of damage. So why is that the case? Well, there are several different the causes. One is, Hannah Arendt and Richard Sennett and so on had this idea that we are tool makers, Homo faber. But we are not the only one who's making tools. We learn. And then we are social animals. We organize, we create this, collective actions to amplify what we can do individually. But we are not the only one who are social animals. So what makes us unique? I would argue that actually we are Homo poetica. That means we are also meaning makers. So we not only have tools and we have organizing way of mobilizing collective actions, but in doing so, we create meanings in doing so, right? So chair is never just a chair. It could be an armchair, it could be endowed chair, it could be a stool, it could be many different things, right? Or the silliest of all is like we have these professional sports that we created meaning out of silly rules and tools and you and us, and we just like try to kill each other. And that is all about meaning making. So that's what makes us unique. And that allows us to do a lot of great things and also horrible things at the same time. Now, when I actually think about these four papers, they actually illustrate that AI in the future work is really at that intersection of what we do as an individual and in the context of our collaboration with others in organized, routine way, sometimes non-routine way, and the tools that we use, which now we label as AI. So, I was trying to think, as a good professor in the business school, like what can I do with these ideas, and maybe two by two might help. So we have on one hand we have augmenting and automating, and then maybe the domain that these things are automating and augmenting could be performing or communicating in Paul's case. But no person actually works in isolation. We all work no work is ever in isolation. No tool is ever used in isolation. And no task remains the same. So these things constantly change. So maybe this 2x2 dichotomy kind of way of looking at things are not necessarily very helpful. Maybe we need to think about things in a way how these things move around. What used to be communicating is actually becoming a task, and performance becoming part of communicating. Like Paul's work on relational, the network model. So those are actually, when you look at it at each individual, the relational actions are actually task performance, which then triggers communications and so on. So maybe we could zoom out a little bit and try to think about these things. And then I actually thought about, okay, so there are some different kinds. When you think of it as like, okay, there's a lot of switching back and forth between different tasks and then relationality of those activities. So then I think Maha's work gave us this idea. Maybe that interaction and hands-off could be now including algorithms and humans. And so maybe human to human, human to machine, machine to human, and machine to machine, another 2x2. But then I stepped back and said, that still does not really help. Because in all of this, in our collective action here, talking about the future work, actually we are busy making meanings about AI, meanings about our work, meanings of what is automating, and we're creating meaning collectively to automating and augmenting and so on. And then all of a sudden this morning, I actually thought, you know, John Lennon once said, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. So maybe the future work is happening, is what happens when we are busy making plans with AI or making sense of what AI is. Actually, what I realized, what Kate's work actually described is that they're actually doing the future work and they're not actually thinking too much about whether it is augmenting and automating. They're just doing their daily bloody work. So I think maybe what we need to do is step back a little bit and then chill and, you know, don't worry too much about whether these, you know, AI actually is precisely outcome of our meaning making process, which reminds me the recent introductory essay of a special issue of AI by Nick Parenti and Jan Recker and their colleagues, where they actually say that AI is whatever the latest computing technology is. If you look at the history of AI, what we call AI now will, you know, 5 years from now may not be an AI. So it's like we are creating the meaning of these technologies and creating a special class of AI and creating unnecessary anxiety about the future of work, and then creating maybe a not so productive discourse in the society. And then, so maybe we should think about that. But the other thing that I was actually thinking yesterday, there was a wonderful presentation by Kevin Lee at PDF. And there was this whole discussion about a soulfulness of work. And then, you know, we talked about meaning making and what is meaning. And then there's a meaningfulness of our work. And maybe what we actually want to think about is how can we make these tools make our work more meaningful rather than worrying about augmenting, automating? How can we actually make this work more meaningful? Slight, a different topic, but, you know, for example, we talk a lot about fairness and bias. And one of the domains that we apply those discourse in our field is a hiring practice. But no one actually talked about how technology can make our work more meaningful to those people who are hired. The fact that you are hired without any bias doesn't necessarily make that work more meaningful or thriving. And so that there's a lot of interesting discussion about this. And then the computer scientists are trying to compete with one another. My algorithm is 10% more fair than your algorithm. And we are feeding that sort of functional deductive work of AI algorithm development competition by creating this discourse where we don't actually think about what really we as a management scholars can contribute. Maybe the future of work should be more meaningful rather than we worry about whether it is augmenting, automating, and so forth. Yesterday, we had this interesting panel, PDW also, Sheila, you're everywhere, computational theory building workshop. And then it actually was the question about the future of our own work practice, right? And like we were like very nervous, like what if the machines is taking care of all the theory building? And then we used to think that the theory building is very human creative exercise. And then, you know, I was thinking about Carl Weick's beautiful work, theory construction as disciplined imagination. And then, you know, that's exactly how generative algorithms work. They have all these permutation, possible permutation. They discipline in a very disciplined way, think about all different combinations and then spit out possibilities. Maybe our creativity will come back then, choosing among those outcome of combinatorial exercise. And I like that combination better. Maybe that is not so bad. Maybe then we could actually think about what that means. So, so the conversation, concludes. Let's collectively chill and get on with it. Let's get on with AI, whether it is computational work or the work domain. Let's just think about it, right? So, I'd like to our panel to reflect, like, where is the meaning question in your own work? Do you come across actually? Does it actually change the nature of the tools and meaning, or like, do people actually take the meaning of the tools or meaning of the practices or the way they organize their work in a change in a fundamental way? The other question is, like, does the tool make their work more meaningful or less meaningful? The last question is, okay, after all this conversation, what can we actually say to these tool makers, computer science computer science colleagues? Like, we need to actually give them some direction of their future work. And I'm not really sure we are actually providing at the moment, as a management scholars, like a meaningful direction that they could direct their energies, so that they could stop doing this silly race for better, efficient algorithms. So with that, I will stop and turn it over to you.